The applause from the Paris show still echoed through social media the next morning. Fashion critics called it a resurrection of modern elegance. Others said, Nicole Lawson has changed Han Maison forever. But beneath the glitter of success, there were cracks, hairline fractures between love and legacy. In the quiet of his Paris penthouse, Minho stood by the window, phone pressed to his ear. The board is furious, his assistant murmured. They want to launch an internal review about your relationship with Nicole. There is no relationship, he said automatically, then closed his eyes. The lie felt heavier than truth. Sir, Sujin Park is using this to her advantage. She's proposing a merger with her father's company. If you don't agree, she'll threaten my position, Minho finished softly. I know. He hung up, his gaze drifting to the city beyond, Paris glowing like a promise he could no longer keep. Meanwhile, at her hotel suite, Nicole was packing sketches and fabrics when there was a knock on her door. She turned, expecting an assistant, but it was Sujin. The woman entered without waiting for permission, her perfume crisp and commanding. You've done quite the job, she said smoothly. Paris loves you, maybe too much. Nicole crossed her arms. Is there a reason you're in my room? Just thought I'd warn you, Sujin said, smile tight. You're standing in quicksand. The more you move, the deeper you sink. If you're trying to scare me. Oh, I'm not, Sujin interrupted. I'm trying to educate you. Minho's father didn't build Han Maison on feelings. He built it on alliances. And when he returns to Seoul next week, he'll expect his son to remember that. Nicole's jaw tightened. If you came here to tell me I don't belong. No, darling. I came to tell you you'll never win if you play the game by his rules. And with that, Sujin turned and left, heels clicking like gunshots down the marble hallway. Nicole stood there, staring after her, pulse trembling. She had won Paris. But now, she realized, she was fighting something much bigger. Legacy. That night, Minho called her. Meet me at Pont Alexander 3. Midnight. The bridge shimmered under moonlight when she arrived. The Seine rippled gold beneath the ornate lamps, the air heavy with winter rain. He was waiting, coat collar up, eyes unreadable. You shouldn't have come, she said quietly. And yet you did. She gave a small, tired smile. Habit, I guess. He stepped closer. The board is demanding I step back from the company, or announce an engagement to Sujin Park. Her breath caught. They can't force you. They can, he said softly. Han Maison is still my father's empire. I only borrowed it. She looked away, blinking back tears. So what happens now? He hesitated, then reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a folded paper. It was a plane ticket. Seoul, he said. One seat. For you. Come back with me. And if I do, we'll fight this. Together. She shook her head. You don't understand, Minho. If you lose Han Maison because of me, then I'll build another one, he said, voice firm. But not without you. She looked at him, truly looked, and saw the man she had met in that wrong hotel room. The man who had chased her through misunderstandings, storms, and boardrooms. But behind his certainty she saw fear too. The kind that comes when you have something worth losing. You once said you'd rebuild me, she whispered. Maybe this time, let me rebuild you. He smiled faintly. Then come home, Nicole. The wind blew softly, carrying the scent of rain and river. For a long time, neither spoke. Then she said, All right, but if we're doing this, we do it on our terms. Not theirs. Deal. And as the clock struck midnight, the bridge lights flickered, casting them in soft gold as Paris held its breath once more. By morning, the headline read, Han Maison CEO and lead designer returned to Seoul amid scandal and success. But to those who looked deeper, it wasn't a scandal anymore. It was a story of defiance, of two people who refused to choose between love and legacy. Seoul met them with rain. Not the bitter kind, but the cleansing kind that made the air smell like beginnings. The city lights shimmered beneath umbrellas as reporters crowded around the arriving jet. CEO Minho, are you resigning? Miss Lawson, what's next for Han Maison? Is this love or rebellion? Minho moved through the chaos with quiet command, holding the umbrella over Nicole. Her heels clicked beside his, confident and calm, though she could feel the world's weight pressing on her shoulders. Keep walking, he murmured, his voice low, protective, and she did. By the next morning, Seoul was alive with whispers. Fashion journalists praised the Paris show. Business analysts predicted a crisis. Within the glass tower of Han Maison headquarters, the board convened under gray skies. At the head sat Chairman Han Jae-min, Minho's father, an image of discipline in a charcoal suit, his presence as sharp as the rain outside. When Minho and Nicole entered, conversation stopped. You brought her, the chairman said evenly. She's part of this company, Minho replied. She deserves a seat at this table. The older man's gaze slid to Nicole. Paris seems to have emboldened you, Miss Lawson. Paris taught me that fear is a poor business partner, sir, she said softly. A murmur rippled across the room. The chairman's eyes narrowed. Bold words. But boldness without discipline destroys empires. Minho stepped forward. Then maybe it's time our empire learned a new kind of discipline. One built on honesty, not control. You're lecturing me now? I'm asking you to see what I see. He gestured toward Nicole. She saved this company, not because she's mine, but because she believed in the brand more than those born into it. Silence followed, heavy and electric. Finally, Chairman Han exhaled, leaning back. Leave us, he ordered the others. The board members filed out, whispering. Only the three of them remained. The rain outside softened to a drizzle. Minho, his father began quietly. You remind me too much of your mother, always following your heart instead of the plan. Maybe that's not a weakness. The old man's eyes glistened with something that looked almost like regret. She said the same thing before she died. Nicole lowered her gaze, respectfully silent. When I built Han Maison, the chairman continued, I swore never to let feelings endanger it. Love makes men reckless. And yet, Minho said softly, love is the reason you built it at all. That stopped him. You named the brand after her, Minho continued. You kept her name alive through every design, every building, every label. That's not strategy, father. That's love. The chairman's fingers trembled against the table. For the first time, his armor cracked. Nicole spoke gently. Sir, I don't want to divide your family or your company. I only want to make it stronger, together. For a long moment, the old man said nothing. Then he rose slowly, walked to the window, and stared out at the skyline. You've made my son fight for something he believes in, he said at last. That alone tells me I misjudged you. He turned back, the faintest smile touching his lips. Paris was brilliant. Seoul will be a legacy. Both will bear your name, Miss Lawson. Nicole blinked, surprised. You mean? You'll stay, he said simply. Officially. Permanently. Minho exhaled, relief washing through him. Thank you, father. Don't thank me, the old man replied. Prove me right. Then softer. And take care of each other. Han Maison was born from love. Perhaps it's time it's led by it again. That night, in Minho's office high above the city, Nicole stood by the window watching the lights of Seoul glitter against the Han River. He came up behind her, resting a hand lightly on the glass beside hers. He accepted us, she whispered. He did, Minho said. Though I think it was your courage that convinced him. No, she said, smiling faintly. It was your faith. Outside, the storm had passed. The city glowed, washed clean, reborn. We survived Paris, she murmured. We survived Seoul. Then there's nothing left to fear, he replied. She looked at him, eyes shining. Except what happens when people finally realize this was never an accident. He smiled, tracing a finger through the mist on the window, writing two small words in the glass. Our story. Spring came early to Seoul. Cherry blossoms spilled across the streets, and Han Maison headquarters gleamed brighter than ever. The Paris collection had become a global phenomenon. Stores sold out. Investors returned. And Nicole Lawson's name was now spoken with the same reverence once reserved for the brand's founder. But with success came envy, and envy, like perfume, was invisible until it lingered too long. In the weeks after the board's reconciliation, Han Maison was preparing its next launch, Reverie, the Soul Renaissance. It would mark the company's new direction, one built on collaboration between East and West, tradition and modern art. For the first time, Nicole and Minho were credited as co-creative directors. They worked together seamlessly. In boardrooms, ateliers, photo shoots, their connection visible even when unspoken. To the staff, they were legends. To the press, they were unstoppable. To some members of the old board, however, they were a threat. One morning, Minho's assistant entered with an envelope. "Sir, it's from the legal department." Inside was a document, an anonymous report accusing Nicole of intellectual property theft during her time in Paris. Minho's jaw tightened. Who filed this? It came from an internal account. He knew immediately who it was. Sujin Park. That afternoon, in the design studio, Nicole was arranging fabric swatches when she noticed the sudden silence. The kind that fills a room when people stop talking about you just as you walk in. She looked up. Eyes avoided hers. Her heart sank. Moments later, Minho walked in, his expression calm but tense. "Nicole, my office. Now." Inside, he handed her the report. She skimmed it, her face draining of color. "This is ridiculous. Those sketches were mine. I drew them in Paris." "I know," he said quietly. "Then why does it look like you believe them?" He sighed, rubbing his temples. "Because the timing is perfect. Sujin wants the board to reopen her merger proposal. If they see even a shadow of scandal, they'll use it to tear us apart," she finished bitterly. Minho looked up, eyes meeting hers. "We'll fix it, but we have to be smart." She turned away, voice trembling. "I'm tired of being the fire they test you with." "You're not the fire," he said softly. "You're the flame that keeps me standing." Days turned into nights of chaos. Headlines questioned her integrity. Fashion blogs debated whether Nicole Lawson's meteoric rise had been too good to be true. Yet through it all, she kept designing. She sketched through the whispers, stitched through the rumors. She refused to fall. Minho watched her, proud and pained, as she refused to break. But he knew, sometimes strength became exhaustion disguised as grace. Then came the emergency board meeting. Sujin presented her evidence. 2 similar sketches dated before Nicole's Paris debut. "Coincidence," Nicole said evenly. "Or forgery. And you can prove that?" Sujin smiled coldly. Nicole didn't flinch. She opened her tablet, connecting it to the screen. Up came time-stamped footage, security video from her Paris studio showing her drawing the very designs in question. Days before Sujin's supposed proof. Gasps filled the room. "You hacked my files," Sujin shouted. "No," Nicole said calmly. "I protected mine." The chairman's voice cut through the tension. "Enough." He turned to Nicole. "You've defended yourself with honor. I will not tolerate baseless attacks in this company." Then, to Sujin, "Your partnership offer is declined. Indefinitely." Sujin rose, humiliated, and stormed out. After the meeting, Nicole lingered in the empty boardroom, her hands shaking slightly. Minho approached her quietly. "You were brilliant," he said. "I was terrified," she admitted. He smiled gently. "Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's walking into the fire anyway." She looked up at him, eyes soft. "You once said I rebuilt you, but today I think we rebuilt each other." He reached for her hand, briefly, before the glass walls of the room reminded them where they were. "The board is watching," she whispered. "Then let them watch," he murmured. "This is what love built." That night, as Seoul's lights danced across the Han River, Nicole stood on the terrace of the Han Maison Tower, wind in her hair. She felt both exhausted and alive. Minho joined her, standing beside her in silence. "You ever think," she said softly, That all this began because I walked into the wrong room? He smiled, looking out at the skyline. Maybe it wasn't the wrong room. Maybe it was the right door at the wrong time. And now, he said, it's the right time. Below them, the city moved, bright, endless, unbroken. And for the first time since Paris, they weren't running or hiding. They were exactly where they were meant to be. Two hearts, one empire, one flame that refused to go out. The cherry blossoms along the Han River bloomed earlier than anyone expected that year. Soft pink waves that made Seoul look like a watercolor dream. For weeks, the headlines had been kinder. Nicole Lawson, once the accidental muse, was now the visionary who revived a dynasty. Han Maison's Renaissance collection had broken records across Asia and Europe. And though her days were filled with back-to-back meetings, fittings, and interviews, her nights belonged to peace, to Min-ho, to laughter and quiet dinners on their private balcony, where work and love blurred together like ink and silk. One evening, Nicole walked into the design studio after everyone had left. The dim light reflected off rolls of fabric stacked neatly on the table. Pinned sketches fluttered slightly in the breeze from the half-open window. Then she noticed something unusual, a narrow trail of white rose petals leading from her sewing station toward the glass doors. Her brows furrowed. Min-ho, there was no answer, only the faint sound of music, soft jazz, playing from somewhere in the hallway. Curious, she followed the trail. It led her into the rooftop greenhouse, their sanctuary, the place where secrets, confrontations, and apologies had once burned like storms. But tonight, it was transformed. Hundreds of paper lanterns floated above the glass ceiling, reflecting in the misty panes. Between the succulents and hanging ivy, small candles flickered in the shapes of constellations. And in the center stood Min-ho, in a tailored white suit, holding a small cherry blossom branch. Her heart stopped. He looked breathtaking. Not just handsome, but peaceful in a way she hadn't seen before. "What is all this?" she whispered. He smiled gently. "A promise." He stepped closer, holding out the blossom. "Do you remember the first time we stood here?" "Yes," she said softly. "You told me I was ruining your peace." He chuckled. "I was lying. You were ruining my walls." She laughed, her eyes bright. "You've gotten better at confessions." He took her hands. "Then here's another one." He paused, searching her face as if memorizing every expression. Every flicker of light reflected in her eyes. "You've taught me that legacy isn't built by power or family names. It's built by courage, by love that refuses to fade. You gave me back my life, and I don't want another day without you in it." From his pocket, he drew out a small black velvet box. Inside, nestled like moonlight, was a ring, elegant, modern, with a single white diamond surrounded by delicate rose gold petals. Nicole gasped softly, her hands trembling. "Min-ho." He went down on one knee. "Nicole Lawson," he said, voice warm but steady. "You walked into the wrong room that day, and somehow, you walked straight into my heart. Will you marry me?" Tears welled in her eyes. The city lights shimmered beyond the glass, and for a heartbeat, time seemed to stop. She knelt too, not because she had to, but because she wanted to meet him halfway. "I would walk into that wrong room 1,000 times again if it means ending up here." And then, softly, she whispered, "Yes, Min-ho, I'll marry you." Applause suddenly erupted behind the plants. Nicole gasped as the doors slid open to reveal Mr. Han, Mrs. Han, and a small group of smiling employees, including Min-ho's assistant. "You didn't think I'd propose without family," Min-ho teased. Mr. Han stepped forward, smiling warmly. "Nicole, I once doubted whether love could ever protect this family. You proved it could rebuild it. Welcome to the Hans." Nicole's voice trembled with emotion. "Thank you, sir." He shook his head softly. "Call me father." Later, as everyone toasted champagne under the glass roof, Min-ho and Nicole stood apart for a quiet moment, watching the lanterns drift upward through the night air. "What happens now?" she whispered. "Now?" he said, turning toward her. "Now we build something that lasts longer than fashion. We build forever. And as the wind carried the petals around them like falling snow, Nicole smiled. The woman who had once been lost in the wrong corridor of a luxury tower was now exactly where she belonged. The morning of the wedding dawned clear and golden. Sunlight spilling through the floor-to-ceiling windows of the Grand Han Resort overlooking the Han River. Seoul had never looked so alive. Luxury cars lined the entrance. Paparazzi hovered discreetly behind velvet ropes, and drones hovered in the air capturing every detail. The world had been waiting for this day. Nicole Lawson, the Black American designer who had redefined modern Korean elegance, marrying Min-ho Han, the billionaire heir who turned tradition into innovation. It was more than a wedding. It was a statement that love could cross oceans, industries, and expectations. Inside the bridal suite, Nicole stood before the mirror, her reflection framed in soft gold light. Her gown, designed by her own hands, was a masterpiece of symbolism. Ivory silk that flowed like water, embroidered with thousands of beads fading into gold at the hem. Her long hair was styled for the wedding, a jeweled comb glinting above her ear, a Korean lotus flower paired with African beadwork. Her friend and stylist, Nia, adjusted the last pin. "You look like a dream they'd write songs about," she whispered. Nicole smiled faintly, though her eyes shimmered with nerves. "It still feels unreal." "That's how you know it's real," Nia said with a grin. Just then, a soft knock sounded on the door. Mr. Han's voice, calm, deep, and now full of warmth. "Nicole, may I come in?" She nodded, and when he entered, she was stunned. The man who had once disapproved now looked at her like a father proud of the daughter he never expected. He carried a small velvet box in his hand. "This belonged to Min-ho's mother," he said gently. "She would have wanted you to wear it." Inside was a delicate gold bracelet, engraved with Korean and English characters intertwined. "Love conquers fear." Nicole's throat tightened. "Thank you, father." Downstairs, Min-ho adjusted his cufflinks for the 5th time, nerves disguised as composure. His best friend, Jean, smirked. "You're shaking, CEO." "No, I'm thinking," Min-ho said, though his voice betrayed him. "Thinking about her walking down that aisle?" He smiled slightly. "Thinking about how lucky I am. She never walked into my life." Jean laughed. "Or your bathroom." Min-ho shot him a mock glare. "That too." The ceremony was held in the rooftop greenhouse, the same place where their love had been tested, forgiven, and reborn. Hundreds of white blossoms arched overhead, lanterns glowing like fireflies above the guests. Soft piano music played as the doors opened. Everyone stood, and there she was. Nicole walked down the aisle, her arm linked with Mr. Han's, petals fluttering beneath her feet. Every step echoed the story that had brought them here, the mistakes, the defiance, the tenderness. Min-ho's heart pounded as he watched her approach. He had faced boardrooms, scandals, and empire-threatening deals, but nothing compared to the awe of this moment. When she reached him, he whispered, almost reverently, "You're the most beautiful thing I've ever seen." "You clean up well too," she teased softly, eyes glistening. The officiant smiled. "Marriage is not about perfection," he began. "It is about choice, the decision to stay, to trust, to grow." As they exchanged vows, Nicole's voice trembled with emotion. "You found me when I was lost in a hallway, and instead of pushing me away, you changed my life. You showed me that love can be fierce, but also gentle, that it can build something lasting." Min-ho's vow was quieter, but his words carried through the air. "You taught me that real power is in forgiveness. You turned my world from marble to heartbeat, and I'll spend the rest of my life protecting the light you brought into it." When the officiant said, "You may now kiss the bride," Min-ho didn't hesitate. He pulled her close, the world around them vanishing into applause, laughter, and 1,000 floating petals. Later that evening, the ballroom gleamed under crystal chandeliers. The newlyweds danced to a jazz rendition of "Fly Me to the Moon," surrounded by friends, family, and colleagues who had once whispered but now cheered. Nicole rested her head against Min-ho's chest. "Remember when you said you'd never mix business with emotion?" I remember losing that argument beautifully, he murmured. They laughed softly. Then, as the music slowed, Minho leaned in close. There's one more surprise. He guided her toward the terrace, where the night sky glittered over the Han River. And then fireworks, not grand or loud, but elegant bursts of gold and pink that spelled out, "The right love." Nicole turned to him, eyes wide with emotion. You didn't. I did, he said, smiling. Because that's what we are. As the crowd toasted below, Nicole and Minho stood together in quiet joy. So, she whispered, what now, Mr. Han? Now, Mrs. Han, he said softly. We start our forever, and maybe a little vacation. Somewhere without locked bathrooms, I hope. They both laughed, their voices melting into the music and the starlit night. And for once, neither of them needed to look ahead. The wrong door had led them exactly where they were meant to be.
Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the story, please do not forget to like and subscribe to our channel. Also tell us the country you are watching us from in the comments section so that we will make a story for you.